Welcome to Strongbrook Radio, leveling up with today's thought leaders. What you're about to hear are powerful insights, entertaining stories, and life-changing principles from some of the most innovative minds in the world today. This is Strongbrook Radio. All right, well, welcome. This is Stephen Michael Miller with Strongbrook Radio. So glad to have everyone here on the line with us. If this is the first time tuning into Strongbrook Radio, I just want to say thank you so much for joining us today. And if you've been with us before, and this is something that you have made a habit in your life, I want to say thank you again for being here with us every single week. As always, we're here to talk to some of the world's leading minds, individuals that have had problems on their own and have found solutions that they're now out there sharing with everybody. And what a treat it is for me to be able to sit and speak with these individuals, to interview these individuals who are bringing solutions to the masses. And today is like many other days. I've got just an unbelievable individual here with us today at Strongbrook Radio, someone who is going to share with us what they've done to find different solutions in their lives and how they're sharing that with the world right now. And so this individual is one person that I've really grown to love. He's an individual that I've become great friends with over the last several years. And to give him a proper introduction, I want to let you know a little bit about him. Now, Gary Norris is the president of Mindset Cash Flow Solutions, a real estate investing and marketing company founded in 2005. He specializes in promoting and marketing real estate investment educational products, and Gary has built a successful network of marketers and team leaders, resulting in a six-figure commissions earnings for him. Now, with a focus on residential properties, Gary's real estate experience includes lease options, or what is deemed compassionate financing, subject to purchases, wholesaling, fix and flips, and short sales. Gary and his wife Jane also host the Rebel Entrepreneur Radio Show, which is a powerful real estate investing podcast encompassing a mix of mindset, humor, and empowered entrepreneurship that you can visit at www.rebelbizradio.com. Again, that's www.rebelbizradio.com. So without any further ado, I'd love to bring you on here. Gary, are you there?
You bet I am, Stephen Michael Miller. How are you?
Fantastic, Gary. So great to have you here on the call with us today. And I say call, but it's the radio show.
You bet. I'm glad to be on the radio with you.
Yeah, so glad to have you here. And, what I'd love to do, first of all, is before we really jump into things, I'd love to see if you have, I know that you're a man that enjoys humor. Actually, I follow you on Facebook, and I see some of your posts. I actually saw one today that made me laugh out loud. And so really enjoyed that. But do you have a favorite joke that you can share with us?
Oh, my gosh. Well, a favorite joke. Well, I'll tell you one thing. The reason I do radio and not television is because when you look at my face, you'd know. I've got a face for radio. Let's just leave it at that. But I love jokes. My last name is Norris, so I try to embrace all Chuck Norris jokes.
Excellent.
And, most people say the joke, when Chuck Norris looks under his bed, what does he look for? And I tell people he looks for me because I taught him everything he knows. I just didn't teach him everything I know.
I like it.
There you go.
That's a good one. Well, perfect. Well, hey, Gary, you've done a lot of things, and you've made a name for yourself in the real estate space and have worked with all sorts of individuals, and really encompassing a lot of different strategies, like you listed out here before, like I talked about earlier in your introduction. But before we get into the real estate side of things, I want to ask you a question. I want to know why people call you the Rebel Entrepreneur.
Well, that's a good question. It's funny because people call me the Rebel Entrepreneur because I tell them to, frankly. And and there's a reason for that. And that is, if you want something in your life, you have to be the one that goes out and does something for your life. It really has to be that. And we have a mutually great friend, Kevin Clayson.
Oh, yeah, good guy.
Yeah, Kevin Clayson is one of the co-founders of Strongbrook, and Kevin calls himself the Chief Officer of Awesome. And he calls himself that because he wanted people to call him that. So he did. And so he does. And that's what I was with the Rebel Entrepreneur. Really, I wanted to be called the Rebel Entrepreneur just because what the rebel means to me is, I can go in for hours on this topic alone, but it's really.
Well, what does it mean? What does it mean to be a rebel entrepreneur to you?
Well, to be a rebel means one key piece, I would say, is tapping into stuff that already exists so you don't have to go create it yourself. For example, one thing I love about your great company, Strongbrook. Strongbrook is a multi-million-dollar company. They've been in business 8 years. They've done almost $1 billion in real estate sales for their clients. And I, as an individual that was living up in Idaho doing real estate with me and my 1 or 2 person partners, and we were really doing what we could do, wanting to create this amazing thing. And then the problem is you're one person or you're 2 or 3 people. And I was wishing there was a company that was already set up that would do all of this fulfillment and all of the acquisitions, the finding, the funding, the fixing, the flipping, the reselling, all the things that Strongbrook does. And for a rebel entrepreneur is if you want something, go find a way to tap into something that's already created. And that's what I'm doing with Strongbrook. I've referred people to you guys for 5 years now, just because I know you're awesome. Now, I wouldn't necessarily do it just because I know you're awesome, but because you guys write thank you checks when I send people to you, I thought this is a mutual beneficial opportunity. Why wouldn't I take advantage of a multi-million-dollar company and everything that's associated with that and plug into what they have going and just capitalize on it and profit from it? And that's that's one thing that being a rebel entrepreneur is, and that is going out, finding things that are in existence and tapping into them, like great marketing plans with other companies or fulfillment plans or people like Amazon.com. Holy cow, there's a great way. If you want to be a rebel, just go in there and resell stuff and have Amazon ship it. eBay sellers, that's what I mean, that kind of a thing.
I love it. It's interesting because I read an article just today, or part of an article today, that was talking about entrepreneurship and how, as an entrepreneur, most people are paving a new path and they're doing things that most people have never done before. And so I think a lot of people, when they think of entrepreneurship, they think that they've got to go out there and trailblaze. They've got to be a pioneer in some sort of thing. And if I'm hearing you right, you're saying being a rebel entrepreneur is taking advantage of all the upside of entrepreneurship, but also being smart enough, being with it enough to tap into systems, take advantage of expertise that's gone there before. Is that right?
Exactly. A true rebel entrepreneur would take a freaking shortcut. That's what I do. That's like plug into something that's already proven itself and maximize what you're good at. You contribute something to a system that's already in place and profit from your contribution.
Well, I love that. So when or how did you realize that you were a rebel? Truth be told, I was in 7th grade when I realized I was a rebel, not necessarily a rebel entrepreneur, but I'm in 7th grade English. And our teacher, go ahead. Well, I was just going to say, so 7th grade, I just want to get the age right. So 7th grade, you were probably, 11, 12, 13, somewhere right around there?
Yeah, they just barely got paved roads in Idaho.
Okay.
And I think I was about 12, maybe 13, 12.
Right.
Yeah,
12.
Right. Yeah, 12, 13 or somewhere in there. And my English teacher would give us book reports. And her book reports were extensive, and we had to do a lot of them. And it took me a lot of effort. I wasn't a big fan of reading. And thankful for
I know that one. Yeah, right. No kidding.
No kidding. So I would do this book report, and one day I had to go ask my teacher a question while she was sitting at her desk in front of the class, and I was waiting for her to look up at me and acknowledge my existence. She was too busy grading book reports from the previous turn-in. And as I sat there and watched her go over a stack of book reports in about 3 minutes, she just was assigning grades to them. She wasn't reading a darn thing. And I was incensed the fact that I put hours into reading the book and then effort into writing the report, and you're not even looking at it. You're just assigning a letter grade. So The Rebel and Gary came out. And the next book report I turned in, I made the real title, but I said the number of pages on my book report is like 900 pages. And it wasn't a 900-page book. It was probably a 70-page book. And in the summary of the book report, I said, I won't say her name, but her initials are Mrs. Irons. I said, sorry, just kidding. I said, Mrs. Irons, I deserve an F on this report because I never read the book. In fact, what I'm doing right now is just filling this paragraph with letters and words that make no sense other than I don't think you'll read this anyways. I'll probably get an A or a B. I deserve an F. And that's really what I made for my report, commentary like that. And guess what I got on my book report?
I'm guessing an A or a B.
I got an A. And I'm like, okay, that's when like the rebel in Gary was born. And now I say that kind of lighthearted because we all are rebels. Everyone, if you're alive and you know how to walk, assuming you have 2 legs and you've walked in your past, we all learned to walk. Most of us learned to ride a bike, but we didn't learn it the first time. But when you fell, you got back up. When you fell, you got back up. And that's what a rebel does in business. When you fail, you get back up because there's no such thing as failing or falling as long as you're learning. And that's what I mean by being a rebel entrepreneur.
Oh, I love that story. And this is a story, I just want to draw a little connection because, Gary, you and I are a lot more similar than I think because I also consider myself a rebel. And at a young age, I was also a rebel. Now, this was I think, my freshman year of high school. So I was probably just a little bit older than you. I was probably 14 years old at the time. Maybe, about 14. And my English class as well, we had a book report, same kind of thing. And,
you kidding me?
No, it's like no joke. And I someone had told me that the teacher didn't read the things. Like literally, this is almost an identical story. It's hilarious. So I remember I was like the night before, I hadn't hardly written anything. I'm like, I'm going over everything, and I just don't have time to really put myself into this and make it good. And so a big portion of this book report, I talked about peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and how to make them appropriately so they taste the very best. And I literally, there were paragraphs of me talking about peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and how they tasted great and how I loved them and how you had to make sure you get the peanut butter at the very edge of the bread and the jelly the same way. And I'm pretty sure I got either an A or a B or something like that on the paper. It was hilarious. So you and I are a lot more similar in a lot of ways than I knew. But that's hilarious.
Awesome.
The rebel coming out, right?
Amen, brother.
So being a rebel and really deeming yourself the rebel entrepreneur, now everyone knows you as the rebel entrepreneur. This has led you on a lot of different paths, but one of those is that you started your radio show. And talk to me, how did that radio show come into existence?
That's a good question. So originally, I was called the Real Estate Rebels radio show. This is going back in about 2007, about 8-9 years ago. But anyway, I was in Idaho Falls, Idaho. I had just been probably investing in real estate for 5 years. I had just quit my job as a pharmaceutical sales rep because my real estate was just creating enough income to replace it. And I was listening to the AM radio because I love talk radio. But prior to the 10 o'clock hour when the talk radio starts, we have to hear infomercial after infomercial on local Idaho Falls radio. And one I was hearing one day for about 3 weeks was this incessant commercial every morning that talked about irritable bowel syndrome. And if you would take their super pill, they would cure your pooping problems. And I'm like, this is on the radio. And I'm thinking to myself, someone is paying for this infomercial.
You're like,
for 30 minutes.
I can talk about poop on the radio.
Yeah, well, I had this idea. I'm like, if I call the radio station, I'm thinking about doing a community service here.
Right.
How much would it cost to buy a half-hour infomercial time? And I called them and asked them, and they told me. And I'm like, how much for an hour? And it was like $1,200 for an hour, for 1 hour once a week. And I said, do I have to play the same thing over and over? Can I just come into your studio and talk about whatever I want? They're like, I don't care. It's infomercial time as long as we approve of the content. And I said, that's how the radio show was born. Me and a couple of buddies, we said, why don't we just get together, call us the Real Estate Rebels, and go there and get this stupid commercial off the air, and we'll talk about real estate instead of the size and shape of your stuff in the toilet. And that's really how the Real Estate Rebels was born. And we turned it into where what was neat is what we owned at the time. We didn't have to have commercials if we didn't want them because we just paid the radio station for the hour. So we found an attorney that was doing a lot of our entity structuring when we would do real estate deals. He became one of our advertisers. One of the fix and flip partners we had, they wanted to advertise on our show, and we would just charge them enough to cover the cost of our $1,200 a month. And we had 3 sponsors. They would pay us $400 a month each. And we did this radio show for free just to market me as a real estate agent, my other buddy as a loan originator, and to help us network in the community. And that made us a few $100,000. It was just amazing that worked out. But that's when radio was born. We did this show for 5 years on the AM dial in Idaho Falls, Idaho. It was a lot of fun. And then we morphed it into the internet, which we're doing more of today, and podcasting.
That's fantastic. What a way to take a system and work it.
See, that's what a rebel does.
That's
hear
right.
a bad commercial and you do something about that. And we laugh. We'd like, hey, we helped the community. We got that off the air. Now let's talk real estate.
No, I think that's amazing. So you had your radio show going. Now, obviously, like I said before, you've got your hand in a lot of different things. You've done a lot of different types of real estate. And I think there's no doubt as to why you've had so many different opportunities presented to you, where you've been able to take advantage of those. And I know that one of your favorite questions to ask people is, are you open to a possibility? Tell us a little bit more about that.
I love that. One of my mentors, Dave Blanchard with the Og Mandino Company, he runs the Og Mandino Company now, and I was coaching with him, and he told me, he said, Gary, the biggest thing you can do for people is help them see possibility. And I'm like, okay, and how do I do that? And he taught me a great lesson. He said, if you just ask people, are you open to a possibility? And of course, they don't really know what you mean. It's a good pattern interrupt. But when I ask people that, they then pay attention to what you're going to say next. And then this is my introduction on whatever it is your business is, whatever you're an expert at. And that, for me, it was, hey, are you open to a possibility? And then the next follow-up question would be, if you had the ability to recognize opportunity that was all around you and you didn't before know it was there, would that be of interest to you, or would that be of value to recognize opportunity that before you couldn't see? And when they would say, of course, yeah, I would say, well, if you're open to a possibility, I have some stuff I can share with you. And it was a great lead in to help me in my business, whether this is you in your coaching business or real estate, or if you're in a network marketing company, or you're an insurance agent, or a real estate agent, it doesn't matter. It's just a great way to open and connect with people.
Well, that's amazing. Yeah, and definitely it's one of those things that gets people to stop in their tracks and think. And I think that's really what we want to do as business owners, as rebel entrepreneurs, is get individuals to stop in their tracks, stop in their daily patterns, and just think a little bit differently. So this kind of leads me into the next question that I wanted to ask you is, how do you help people to think differently? How do you help them to get out of where they are? I mean, you've helped a lot of people to see a lot of success. What are some of your trade secrets in helping people to get outside themselves and become a rebel entrepreneur?
Wow. Well, there's a few places I could go with this right now, and I just want to know which one I might want to jump into and maybe launch into a little bit. But one of the things that I've done is I like to help people find what they're good at, what they're I call it the rebel zone, or the genius zone, so to speak.
Sure.
And that is, what are you wanting to do with your life that would fulfill you, not just necessarily your job that you don't like or your career that you hate, but we need to help people find out what really impassionates them and help them figure that out so they can maybe find a way to monetize it. And that is one of the things I love to do to help people with.
Is to help them find their passions and then help them to monetize. That's what you're saying?
Exactly.
Awesome.
Yep.
Tell me how you go about that. I mean, our listeners here, they're looking for some of those nuggets as well as to, what can they really start to do today? What are some of the things that they can do right now to overcome some of those fears and to be able to start seeing some of that success? So for the individual that maybe doesn't even know how to really identify those passions, can you take us through maybe a little bit of a scenario of what that could look like?
Sure. If you were to get a piece of paper out. In fact, you could do this right now because if you're driving or whatever, do this later and come back and listen to this archive of this audio. But to really find your rebel zone, I get people to get a piece of paper and draw a line right down the middle of a piece of paper. And if you do it on your computer, that's fine. But I want you to visually do this. So a piece of paper works really, really good. But if you draw a line down the middle of a piece of paper, on the top of one side of the piece of paper, you write things I'm really good at, things I'm good at. On the other side of the piece of paper, you write down things that I love. What are my passions? And what I want you to do is make a list and don't judge your list. Just write things I'm good at. I'm good at connecting with people. I'm good at computers. I'm good at math. Whatever it is, write all the things you're good at, as many as you can think of. And then on the other side, write all the things that you love to do. I love hiking. I love being with animals. I love being with my kids. Just write them down. I love skiing. I love whatever it is. And then the next thing I want you to do is ask your spouse or your significant other. I want you to ask them the same question and get their perspective, because you have your perspective, but trust me, other people have their perspective, and what you think you love to do and what you think you're good at doing is coming from your set of eyes. But ask your spouse or significant other or your closest friend and get their set of eyes, and they'll say, well, you know what I know you love to do? You love this and you love that, and you're really good at this and you're really expert at that. And when they do this, you write them down on each side of the paper, what you're good at and what you love to do. And then I want you to take it another step further, and I want you to ask 3 to 5 people that just know you. Could be a coworker, could be a sister, could be an in-law, could be a neighbor in your local church. I just want you to ask them, hey, when just off the top of your head, as the way you know me now, what are some things that you think are some of my passions? And then take note of them so you can write them down. And then ask them, well, what are some things that you think I'm really good at, some of my expertise? And now you've established this huge list on this piece of paper. And on the one side, you have your views, your closest people's views, and your associates' views of what you're good at, expert at, and the other side is what your passions are. And now I want you to match the list. And this is how we help people find their rebel zone. I call it the rebel zone because I'm a rebel entrepreneur, but you can call it your passion zone, whatever. But then you go in there and you look for the similarities. So if dog walking or if being with pets is on one thing, and you also you love to walk dogs or something, maybe you can start a dog walking business or a pet sitting business. But maybe it's you love snow and you could be a ski instructor. I just, whatever it is, you just want to draw the similarities. And what you're going to find is, for me, it was I love people. I love connecting with people. And I'm good at connecting with people to opportunity. So for me, this was my rebel zone that I discovered when I did this. By the way, John Lee Dumas taught me this through, he's the podcast Entrepreneur on Fire. He's the first person I heard this whole concept from a few years ago. But I found for me, I love connecting people to opportunity. That's a passion of mine. I just love doing it. But I also found out I'm really skilled at connecting with people, and I'm lighthearted, and I don't take life too seriously. So sometimes people will be attracted to me, and those that aren't, I don't want them attracted to me because I like people that like lightheartedness, and they're not stuffy and too prim and proper, and I'll reject them, right? I would repel them, they would repel me. But I found my rebel zone, and that was the power of connection. And it doesn't matter what yours is. It's just important that you find what it is, because in everything in life, I meet people that are that cut hair, they're hairdressers, and they absolutely love it. When someone else may be a hairdresser and may absolutely hate it, but it was what they could do because it's what they could afford when they got out of high school, and they don't even love it. But in anything, you find people that love what they do, And that's all I want for people, is to love what you do. And finding your rebel zone is one way to help that. So once you have these similarities and you can make that connection that, wow, this fits both equations. It's something I'm good at and something I love to do. And then it might be 1, 2, 3 things. It could be 15 things. But then I want you to sit down and think, how could any of these relational things become monetized? Is it possible to monetize that so that I can work in my passion and get paid for it so it won't feel like work? Does that make sense, Stephen?
Oh, that makes total sense. And I love what you're saying here, because this is one of those, almost one of those sacred cows. You know, I think I mentioned this gentleman before who wrote Killing Sacred Cows, a great book, New York Times bestseller. But that book talks about specifically taking these societal norms and then just challenging them. And I think that's part of what being a rebel entrepreneur is all about. And finding your rebel zone is, we're taught as children that we need to go out and work and do something that's safe, right? And so whether that, like you said, whether that was to go be a hairdresser or to go to school and become a doctor or whatever it is, oftentimes that safety net, that safety area doesn't coincide with what our passions are. And so we find ourselves in this area of, going to work, spending the best 40 hours a week of our life at doing something that we totally dislike. And when you find yourself in that zone, you're usually just kind of going through the motions and doing the grind, and you're going to earn a paycheck, but you're never going to really grow past that because you don't like it even. And I'll tell you that the individuals that I have seen that are the very most successful in life, the individuals that I know who make millions of dollars, and it's not even about the millions, it's about those people who are just fed with energy, and they go to work and they love it, and they're not working, they're playing. We've heard that before, of course. Those are the individuals that are truly living and doing those things that fit both sides of this equation, both things that they're good at and things that they're passionate about. And so this is really, I love what you're talking about here, Gary, because becoming a rebel entrepreneur, getting inside your rebel zone, is so crucial for us. And for those of us that are listening here on the radio today, that are listening to Strongbrook Radio and learning from Gary Norris and myself, hopefully you've taken some notes, and hopefully you will actually go home and find out where your rebel zone is and decide to take some steps and actions today to start playing inside of that rebel zone. Now, Gary, I love what you talked about so far. How do you recommend that people take some of those first steps? So once they've figured this out, how do they take some of those first steps to really getting inside that rebel zone?
Man, I'm really glad if I could have been sitting next to you, I would be prompting you to ask me that question. So, because I'm like, oh no, if he wraps up, I wanted to say another piece that makes it kind of complete. So thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
When people create this list, and if you want to look and see, I wonder if this is monetizable, let's just throw it out there. Say, I'm really good at technology and I'm a good writer. I love writing and I love the computers. I'm good at both. Maybe you want to become a copywriter. Maybe you want to be a writer, and you might want to say, okay, so, or whatever it is. I'm just throwing that out as an example. So I want you to get on the internet, go to Google and do a Google search for what your potential rebel zone is. When you find something that matches your passion as well as your expertise, Google it and say, let's just say it's where you live and you're like, maybe I want to start a pet grooming business. Google pet grooming. And if you find that there's pet groomers within your local town already and even close to where you are, I'm here to tell you that is not, most people would see that and go, oh, shoot, someone's already doing it, right? But that's not what a rebel entrepreneur would do. A rebel would say, I must be onto something because someone's already doing it. Instead of feeling defeated, like, oh, there's already 15 things that people do this. I see stuff like that all over on the internet in my own town. Well, good. That means there's a viable business opportunity and you should explore it even further. What I would be scared at is if you Google searched your passion zone, your rebel zone, and found out that there's nothing, then you might go, well, I got to go create it. But what if there's already something that gives you a big clue that there's a potential even higher that you could monetize it. Does that make sense, Stephen?
Oh, it makes total sense. What a great thought. And, I think so many times we focus on the things that we aren't going to be able to do or that we don't know about it. And, what I hear from you is take what you do know, go out there and start doing a little bit of research, find that, and then do some more research. I mean, at the end of the day, we can focus on the things that we can focus on, right? We don't necessarily know what's outside of our view or outside of our vision. We all have blind spots. But if you take that first step, do some research, find a company. As you were saying that, I'm thinking to myself, yeah, if I'm starting a pet grooming store, I would go to that pet grooming store. I'd see how they set it up. I'd go get to know the owner and quiz them a little bit and say, hey, what were the startup costs for you? What were you looking at? How can I help you? And I'd start to do some research because truly, like you said, if they've developed a system and it works, then there's no reason why you can't get out there and copy that as much as possible, but also put yourself into it and put your unique twist onto it. It's interesting. Every time I drive by any fast food store, you'll almost never find a fast food place by itself. Right? You'll almost never find one fast food chain just sitting there on its own. If there's I'm not endorsing anybody, but if you'll find a McDonald's there, you'll almost always find a Taco Bell nearby or a Subway nearby or, or something else right next to it because they found that location works. They've done some research and that just makes it easier for the rest of us, right, that are trying to start our businesses.
That is so true. In fact, there was a lady that was a nurse and she loved nursing, but she hated going to work as a nurse. Now, figure that out for a second. She loved nursing, but she kind of resented it at the same time. And she found that there's so much involved in nursing, right? You want to be a registered nurse. Well, do you want to work in emergency? Do you want to work in day surgery? Do you want to work in prenatal? Do you in pediatrics? Do you want to work in the maternity area? Do you want to work in a nursing home? There's so much to nursing. Just a lot of people are like, I want to go into nursing. Well, this lady who was a nurse had this idea, and that was, she said, I wish there was someone when I was in nursing school that I could go to that could tell me the ins and outs of nursing and what would be good here and why this one's maybe not and which one has horrible hours or bad side effects to the job, it drains you emotionally or et cetera, et cetera. And this person's like, well, why don't I do that? Why don't I become and this lady becomes the lady that tells people why you should never go into nursing and markets herself as the nurse that tells potential nurses they should never go into nursing unless they talk to her. Now, what does she just create for herself?
Sounds like she's created a whole market for herself.
Yeah, she's created a market for herself. She's a nurse that actually doesn't like the physical act of going into nursing anymore because her kids, she got kids in the family and she wanted to be able to be just a consultant on nursing. And she was able to go find, doing some Google research, that the information in my head about nursing would be very helpful to people who are up and coming into the nursing profession. And maybe I could become an online why you should never be a nurse guru unless you talk to me first. And that can create a 5-figure monthly income exceeding her nursing income. And she can now come home and work in her living room in her, I won't say pajamas, I will say in her, oh shoot, what do you call the stuff the nurses wear?
Oh, they're scrubs or something.
They're scrubs. There you go. So she can work from the comfort of home in her scrubs.
There you go. That's awesome. Well, I'll tell you, first of all, Gary, thank you so much for being on Strongbrook Radio today. We're so glad that we were able to get you on. I know that you're a busy guy. You're all over the nation supporting your teams and different individuals and growing your business as well. So thank you so much for taking some time to be with us today and to bless our listeners with information that they can actually take and implement and utilize right now to improve their lives and their situations. What are maybe some parting thoughts or some final thoughts that you'd like to leave with our listeners today?
Well, thank you very much. Well, first of all, thank you too. And I really want to thank Strongbrook. And for those of you listening to Strongbrook Radio, I hope you realize the power of what you have in your phone or on your computer right now listening, whether you're listening, downloaded this on iTunes or on your free Strongbrook app. I hope you realize the power of what is right in front of you. And not because I'm talking. That's the last thing I would say. But the platform that Strongbrook has put together, their mentoring network and Strongbrook Radio in particular, how they showcase people that can really bless your life if you're open to a possibility. Sorry, I had to do that plug.
I like
But
it.
you've got to be open to this possibility of wanting to be better. So that would really be my thing. I would just tell people is, look, if you want something, you've just got to be the first person that takes charge and says, I'm going to choose for myself to take action. And that, my friends, is probably the biggest key to success in anything you do. And that is you making the decision for you to take action, not making the decision because it would be good for your kids, or it would be good for your spouse, or it would be good to, for whatever reason. The best, most powerful reason, if you make a decision for yourself. Because once you empower yourself, you can change the world. You really can.
Awesome. Well, Gary Norris, thank you so much again, everyone. This has been Gary Norris, president of Mindset Cash Flow Solutions, here with Stephen Michael Miller on Strongbrook Radio. So glad to have you here again, Gary. And for all of you that are just tuning in for the first time, hopefully you'll take this information and implement it. Don't wait for tomorrow. Don't wait for next week. Take this information and apply a piece of it to your life today. And I can tell you right now that if you will do that, and every single week as you listen here to Strongbrook Radio, if you will implement those gold nuggets, those little bits of information, those powerful, powerful pieces of information, you'll start to change your life for the better and start to do things that you wish you always had been able to do. This again is Stephen Michael Miller with Strongbrook Radio. We'll talk to you next week. Bye-bye.